Warning, Prospect Watch is not your average hockey podcast, and that's okay with us. Our goal is to introduce you to stars in the making from all over the world. They may not be household names yet, but we assure you they will be soon enough. Welcome to Prospect Watch. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of Prospect Watch with your host, Ron SteelFlyers. Hey, how you doing, folks? I am sitting in, ready to go and talk some great prospects. And folks, let me tell you something. We got a very, very special guest sitting in here with us tonight. That's right, folks. Hello and welcome to Prospect Watch, a podcast that focuses solely on the discovery of some of the best young talent in the game today. And I'm here to tell you, folks, we don't have a discovered talent. We have a guy that discovers talent sitting with us tonight. We are honored to be sitting here with the creator of Draft Utopia, Mr. Chris Ransom. How you doing, Chris?
Glad to be on, Ron. I think this show is going to be a lot of fun tonight.
I think so too, man. I think we're going to get to talk about a lot of stuff that's going to be happening here, especially the draft coming up here, like the NHL draft. So let's get right into some questions. What do you think?
That sounds great.
Okay. Well, usually on the show here, we have a getting familiar section. Okay. And so for those of you that don't know who Chris is, let me clue you in. Okay. So with a dream and very little money, Mr. Ransom started Draft Utopia back in 2012. He covers all the drafts from the NBA, the MLB, the NFL, and the one that we care the most about, the NHL draft. That's right, folks. You can find him on all of the YouTube channels out there and all the great podcasting platforms. We'll have all his links down in the description, and check this out, right? Chris also releases a mock draft every year for the NHL, and he's just about ready to release his 7-round mock draft, man, because the NHL draft is coming up June 28th, 29th, and 30th, right? Or the 27th and 28th, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, here we go. Let's get started. Okay. What made you decide to create Draft Utopia back in 2012?
Well, I had the podcast in 2011 for a while
Okay.
I was working at Rant Sports, covering draft stuff for them, covering the Patriots, covering the Dallas Stars, Kansas City Chiefs. I had a lot on my plate back then. So I decided, you know what? Let's take the podcast and turn it into the website. And I felt like it was time to go solo with that. And it's been my niche ever since.
I'll say, I mean, you have a lot of really good information, and not just about NHL draft. I mean, you cover the NBA draft, you cover Major League Baseball, you cover the NFL. I mean, was that something that you were just part of doing, or is it just
I
turned into
covered
that?
the big four sports and MLS. I mean, so we cover that too. And we started covering the WNBA a few years ago because I recoded some of the teams pages, like NBA, WNBA team pages. But then I was like, we knew the Caitlin Clark draft was going to be big. So that's really when we began to tap
Right.
into the WNBA.
Right.
Yeah. But
Wow.
we've mainly covered the other 5 since 2012, basically.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So, because this is Prospect Watch and we talk about NHL prospects,
The greatest sport on ice.
and as far as I'm concerned, look, we all know that there's multiple trophies out there. There's multiple championship trophies, but as far as I'm concerned, the Stanley Cup is bar none the hardest trophy on the planet to earn.
It's the hardest trophy to earn. I think it's the greatest trophy, in my opinion. Yeah, you can make a case for the Super Bowl trophy. Yeah, it's a cool trophy, but you can't drink out of it. You can drink out of the Stanley Cup if you want to. And you make the case that the NBA Finals trophy is gold. That makes it the purest of the trophies. But yeah,
Can't drink out of that neither.
You know you can't. And it's not as fun as the Stanley Cup. No offense to the NBA fans.
But I like the fact that the names are on the Stanley Cup. Right? Like
It's
that.
iconic. The names are etched in for each year, each team.
Forever.
It symbolizes your immortality as a team.
It does. It does. And as a player, a coach, even front office names get put on there. I mean, all right. So we did kind of touch on this, and you do have a annual NHL mock draft that you release, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you're going to be doing that here. I mean, we're kind of running out of time here, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be releasing that probably tomorrow because I've got the first 16 picks of round 7 typed. So if I can get the other 16 picks done before 10 a.m. tomorrow, I'll be releasing that when we go live tomorrow, and all of the picks for all 224 picks will be released tomorrow morning. So
wow,
yeah,
you heard it here first, folks. Release of picks on Saturday. Oh man. Okay. So now
I can give you the top 10 because I think that was your first question.
Okay, you're getting a little ahead of me, my man.
Okay, all right. I'll dial back a little bit.
No, you're good. No, I was just getting ready to ask you, who is? I mean, look, everybody's got their consensus number one. Who is your consensus number one?
I believe it's Matthew Schaefer. I think you could have made a case for Michael Misa had he played in the OHL playoffs against Schaefer and won that series. But with Erie beating Saginaw very easily without Schaefer in the lineup, I think Schaefer's retained that consensus number one status, and I believe he will be the Islanders' first pick next Friday. But I don't think there's a runaway generational talent in this draft, but I think there's some very good talent at the top of the draft.
Okay.
And it's a very deep draft too, outside of
right. So you're number one pick. So let's just do that then real quick. We'll run down here the first couple picks then. So your number one pick for you on your mock draft or whatever is going to be Matthew Schaefer. And I got to be honest with you here, folks. Matthew Schaefer, a Prospect Watch alum, we spoke to him when nobody else was speaking to him, and the story of this kid, the talent of this young man, and the fact that he broke his clavicle in Worlds, missed however long, and still is going to be the consensus number one, I think, on most mock drafts around. I think, you know what I mean, right? So, okay, now number two.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what direction Schaefer goes in with Noah Dobson wanting 11 million a year. That's going to be an interesting dynamic. I'll dive more into that tomorrow. But number two, Michael Misa, Saginaw Spirit Center to the San Jose Sharks. I think he will be used as a line 2 center behind Celebrini with Will Smith on the third line, but he will play left winger on the power play with Celebrini, and they will that dynamic will be very similar to how Edmonton uses McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah, and putting those two together and those three on that line, I think, is going to be dynamic. I don't think you're going to be able to see a line like that in the NHL next year at all, and except for that, you know what I mean. So, all right, I'm with you on that so far. As far as Misa being number two, who do you got for number three?
At the beginning of this, I was thinking Martone, but after doing more due diligence post NHL Combine, I believe the Blackhawks are going to select Anton Frondel, third overall, and they could play him at center or winger. He's versatile enough to play all three forward roles, and he's really good defensively. So I believe he has an 80% chance of being a top 9 forward, and I'm thinking 55% being second line. I don't think he's a first line talent in the NHL necessarily, but he's too talented not to find a role with the Blackhawks organization, whether it's at center or winger. And I'm thinking he'll probably be on the top 6 in 2026 after going back to Sweden for one more season.
Okay, so okay, I got you. And we did get on some good information that his injury issues are no worries as far as the injury issues. His wrist is all good to go. He came into the combine completely healthy. So all good to go on that front as well too. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't know if I would if I would have him at number 3 as far as that's concerned. There's
I'm with you, Ron. There's players I like more than him, but from what I'm hearing, I think that's the player Kyle Davidson's going to pick at 3.
it
But I'm
sounds
in agreement with you that I
yeah.
would probably take Martone at 3 if it were up to me.
Okay. So that's kind of where I was going to go with you on that one too, because man, when you just look at the way he plays and his gifts, okay. So is that who your number 4 is?
No, I believe the Coyote. I believe Utah. I can't believe I almost said the Coyotes, but I think the Utah Mammoth are going to select Brady Martin at 4.
Okay.
They had dinner with Martone, they had dinner with Higgins, and they had dinner with Brady Martin. But what I was reading is the guy they talked about the most after those dinners was Martin, and he's
Okay.
now the favorite to go 4th. But that's not why. It's the fact that the organization, they're talking about Martin the most of those 3 after the dinners. That's what really resonates with me. That's why I think Martin goes 4th. Not necessarily who I would pick it for, but I think he's the guy who comes off the board at 4. And
Okay.
Martin's a really good player. So,
Yeah. I mean, he's got the tools.
yeah, I
He,
mean, he was drafted 3rd overall in the OHL draft behind Schaefer and Ryan Ruberek, a guy in next year's draft that will probably go after Gav McKenna, but we'll get to that later. We're not going to get to that today.
okay.
Former captain of the Waterbury Bantam
Yeah.
hockey team, too. So,
Yeah.
good background, very good character.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too, where when you do get to sit down and talk with a lot of these players, you do kind of get that sense of how they are, who they are, the kind of person they are. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
when you get to sit down and talk to somebody and you talk about their craft and you talk about what they want to do for the rest of their lives, and what their dreams are, and it gives you hope because these kids got their heads screwed on and they are 100% all day long, eat, sleep, and drink hockey, and there's no off season. You know what I mean? So, all right, we got top 4. This is
Mhm.
where I'm most interested because I think the top 4 consensus are you're going to get the Schaefers, the Mises, the Frondels. You're going to get that. Some people have Hagens in there.
Number
As
5 is really where the draft starts if we're confident Utah's going to take Brady Martin.
okay,
And
so that's what I want to get to. What this next tier of players, and I want to touch on something actually that you said earlier that I think we both agree. There's no real generational talent in this draft.
yes,
Okay, but more so, man, there's just a lot of guys. I mean, you can go as far back as like what 150 picks, and you're still gonna get a potential starting NHL player. Some of them might be
yeah,
a year, two, three, a
I
year
found
away.
2 players. I found 2 skaters with experience on the first line in the 7th round, and one of them is a team captain on Rogel BK, the player that we mocked the Rangers in the 7th round. So that should tell you how deep this class is.
Okay, so then you're basically on the same page as I am. We both agree that there's no Connor McDavid's, there's no Sidney Crosby's. You know what I mean? There's none of
Yes.
those types of players in this draft. But I got to be honest, Chris. I think there's going to be quite a few players, even as deep as. I mean, you even said your mock all the way to 7th round are going to have guys. I think your teams are going to see a lot of good players all the way through this draft.
Yes. I mean, I think 2020 and 2022 were 7 rounds deep. This draft, I'm starting to get the vibe it's 7 rounds deep. I didn't get that vibe initially, and there were a
No,
lot of people saying that this is a very thin draft. It's not
Yep.
a deep draft, but you can't really be certain of that until you do the due diligence yourself.
Exactly. And when you get to talk to, man, the number of players that we got to speak to this year that are going to go in the top couple rounds of this year's draft, it really goes to show you, excuse me, what these players are really, where they're really trying to go. Do you know what I mean? So, all right,
Yes.
let's get into it now. Okay. Number 5, because now here's where the draft really starts. Number 5.
I went with James Higgins at 5. I
Okay.
think Mark Tone should be the pick here, but I also feel like Barry Trotz, he's going to want someone a little bit more seasoned, a little bit more experienced. He's going to want to take a safer route, and I think Higgins fits the bill for what he wants to do if Nashville
Yeah.
gets center.
Yeah. And I think with the way he played at Worlds and everything else like that, I mean, gosh, how can you not? This kid, I think, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty much um a home run. As far as I'm concerned, James Higgins. Okay. Anyway, all right. So number 6. Now this is where the Philadelphia Flyers are selecting. So, all you Flyers fans, listen up because here it comes. What do you think, Chris?
Well, in my very first mock back in September, October, I gave the Flyers Jake O'Brien. I gave them Caleb Desnoyers in my recent mock,
Okay.
and Porter Martone's still on the board here. So if you pick any of those three, I think you're getting a really good player. But I'm
Okay.
just curious, Ron, who would you pick here, and who do you think the team's going to go with here?
Well, okay. So in my little mock kind of thing, I kind of had the Flyers potentially taking Roger McQueen, but with the injury history that Roger McQueen has, I understand where you're coming from with the Caleb Deone. His brother plays for the Phantoms right now. He's part of the system in the with the Philadelphia Flyers. And although I think Caleb is better than his brother, I don't think they're going to go with another Deone. We really thought, and I really liked O'Brien for the pick here for the Flyers. But I got to be honest with you, with my heart, I would, and I know that the Flyers really need center and everything else like that. But I would really like to see Kayshawn Aitchison go to the Philadelphia Flyers with this pick here at number 6.
I like that. I have him going to the New York Rangers at 12, but I do think he is going to get picked relatively early. There were people saying he's going to go in the 18s, the 20s, and it's like, no. I've heard the Penguins love him, the Rangers love him, the Red Wings love him. One of those teams is going to pick him if Flyers don't pick him at 6.
Yeah.
That's the
So
reality.
and the
He did
Flyers
not
have
make
3
my top
picks.
10, but him and Carter Bear were the first two players outside of my top 10. So
Okay. And but like I said, if potentially Frondell might be available, if Martone might potentially be available, if, and these are all big ifs, you know what I mean? But I personally think that they should be looking for Aitchison. That's who I would go for, or either that or O'Brien. I don't have a problem with O'Brien on that slot either at number 6 either. I'm all down with that one as well too.
yeah, there's a lot of good options at 6.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't. Okay, so now, do you think there's going to be any trades? Because
I've got Roger McQueen at 7, and as far as trades go, I don't. I know there's rumors Chicago and Utah want to move 3 and 4, but I don't see either moving 3 or 4 unless the Flyers want to move up. And I think the Flyers are in a spot where they're good with what's available at 6 because it's
yeah,
such a deep draft and they're not going to be sellers, but if the right offer comes along, they will move the pick.
okay, so that's kind of why I wanted to get your take on that because the last 2 drafts now there was no trades until we got second and third round, right?
I mean, I think there were no trades in 2023. I think there
Okay.
was a trade in last year's draft because I remember the
Okay.
Blackhawks moving up into
Yeah,
the
you're
back
right.
end of the first round to get that guy they wanted from the Bulldogs.
Okay, you're right. You're
Merrick
right. You're right.
Van that's it. Merrick
Yeah,
Van
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was one trade, but other for the most part, everybody pretty much
And the
stayed.
Flyers made the trade with the Wild last year. The Wild, they moved up for Z William, and the Flyers moved down a spot for Jet Luchenko. But it was a very minor trade because there was hardly any movement. One spot trade.
That's what I mean. Like there was no major there was no, but for the most part, it was pretty quiet on the trade front. So you got Roger McQueen at number 7.
To the Bruins, yes.
Okay. I mean, from what I understand, he's going to be a great player. He's one of the kids that we interviewed. He's a Prospect Watch alum, but he potentially will miss some games due to his history.
Yeah, I mean, he had injury history in both his plus 1 year and this year. But to be fair, he did show major improvement taking that leap from the second line to the first line in the games he played this season.
Exactly, especially the last 17 games that he played, man, he really showed out. You know what I mean? So
I
nice.
had him in the 15-14 range in the preseason, but I saw enough to where I can move him into the top 10.
Okay. 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 Cool. Cool.
Not going to
All
go
right.
top 5 with how deep this draft is at the top, but I'm willing to compromise and go top 10. And I think Philadelphia at 6, Boston at 7 are both candidates for Roger McQueen's services.
Okay. Okay. So now we're what at number 9?
8.
8.
8. I gave Seattle Radim Murtka, the hometown Seattle Thunderbirds defenseman. Really impressed me with his skating, his fluidity.
Yep.
I thought he outplayed Landon DuPont in this playoff series where the Everett Silvertips played the Seattle Thunderbirds. I thought he outplayed DuPont in that series, even though the Silvertips moved on and won that
Yeah.
series.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with you on that one as well either. I think that's another amazing, talented player here, and man, we're not even at number 10 yet, and we've already gotten some really good, talented players that are going to go to some really teams that are going to really need these talent. All right, so now we're number
I
9.
had Jake O'Brien at 9, but I decided to move him down to the Red Wings at 13 because Porter Martone just can't be on the board any longer. If it's pick 9 and Porter Martone's still there, he cannot be on the board. Every other team in the top 8 has a reason to pass on Martone if they want a center. Buffalo really doesn't have a reason to pass on Porter Martone.
And you know what though? Here's kind of where I'm thinking things might happen. If he's still on the board at that point, you
I think
might.
Pittsburgh could move up for him because I heard Kyle Dubas loves Porter Martone.
Oh, oh,
Loves him.
man,
So
you're taking the words out of my mouth. I was thinking that maybe Pittsburgh might be willing to do that.
with Seattle at 8 because Ron Francis, he played for Mario Lemieux and the Penguins in the
Okay,
90s.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that I said earlier when I was interviewing Anthony, that's the perfect trade partner for
Yeah.
Seattle at 8, Pittsburgh at 11.
Okay. All right. Okay. So now here we go. Now this is number 10, right?
Yeah.
All right. So number
And
10.
that was my interview with Anthony the Prospect on. That's up on our YouTube channel. We went through the first round today. But number 10, rounding out the top 10, it is I believe I'm just having I'm having a moment for a second where I forgot who has number 10. Give me a second. I know I typed it in notes. I'm sorry. I'm
No.
sorry.
That's
I
okay.
should mentally know this. Victor Eklund of the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim
Okay.
Ducks at number 10.
Okay. I was gonna wait to see if we were gonna hear that name. Okay,
Yeah,
because I'll be honest with you, I'll be surprised if he's still available at that point.
that's fair. Because I mean, he's Willie Mecklen's younger brother. Eklund, I think, went 7th overall in
Yep.
2021.
Yep.
So
I really see him going easily in the top 10.
I agree.
Easily. Yeah. Okay.
If
Okay.
Seattle doesn't want a defenseman, I could see them picking him at 8. And I heard 2 rumors. When Don Sweeney did his postseason press conference, he said he was looking at 2 guys. He was looking at a guy with injury history, and he was looking at a guy in Sweden. That tells me that Bruins are either going to pick McQueen or they're going to pick Eklund at 7.
Yeah, because I mean, and McQueen, I think actually
And
that
Sweeney
actually I
went
think
from
fits.
Yeah,
Him
Sweeney
being
went
in
to 3 of
Boston.
McQueen's games, so I'm
Yeah.
thinking if he's the guy there, if both guys are there, it's going to be McQueen. If McQueen gets picked by the Flyers at 6 or he ends up going a lot earlier than expected, I think the fallback plan is going to be William Eklund at 7 for the Bruins.
Okay. All right. Okay. So there you go, man. We got the first 10 picks from the great Chris Ransom
And
from
if you were
Draft
paying
Utopia.
attention, you got some extra bonus picks because I mentioned Jake O'Brien to the Red Wings at 13, Aitchison
Yep.
to the Rangers at 12, and I
Yeah.
mentioned Carter Bear at 11. So
Yep.
didn't
Exactly.
intentionally hint those picks. It just sort of happened. But
Oh,
that's
but
all you're going to
that's
get.
oh shucks. Darn, we got some extra information out of you. Darn.
That's fun, though. It's fun.
Okay, so now let me throw something at you here. Which goaltender do you think is going to be the first one taken?
I went with Joshua Ravensbergen, and a lot of
Okay.
people are mocking him to Columbus. I know Anthony for Prospect Don, who's done a lot of great interviews, has him going to Nashville. I actually gave him to Ottawa. And I know that sounds kind of strange, but Ottawa, if they choose to keep 21, they're going to have to forfeit a pick for tampering with the Evgeny Dodonov situation.
Yeah.
And if they're going to keep 21 this year, they may as well swing for the fences. They're building a new NHL arena set to
Yep.
open in 2027.
Yeah.
And the goalie you drafted, Linus Ullmark's in his 30s now. So you don't really have a successor to him when he moves on or chooses to retire. So I was thinking Ravensbergen fits what Ottawa wants to do, swing for the fences type pick, and a goalie that will provide that seamless transition as you transition into your new NHL arena set to open in 2027.
Okay. Um I I don't have a problem with him, but I think the first goalie off the board is going to be Elia Nuenswander. I I just I know that he's a 6'4" guy. I know he's more of he's he's a stand-up guy and he goes to the butterfly. He relies on that. I know he needs to work a little bit on his glove hand, but watching him play and at the IIHF um, really proved to me that I think he's got all the tools, and with a little bit of professional coaching, I think he's going to be a top flight goalie. And speaking to him, we spoke to him and Ravens Bergen. We spoke to both of them, and both of these kids are very driven. I don't have a problem seeing them as a number one goalie on whatever team that they eventually get to. I just think that Aaliyah's game is a little bit more than Josh's game as far as goalies are concerned.
That's fair. I mean, to be fair, I think I had as many as 10 goalies that checked off all 10 boxes that you want in a goalie, and we had 80 skaters with experience on a first line, forwards and defensemen. So there's like 90 players at least that could be really good caliber players at the NHL level if they reach their potential and develop correctly.
And that is what 45% of the total number of players that are going to be drafted this year.
Yes, which is insane.
Okay, so you can't tell me that this is not a deep draft.
Exactly. You are not going to get this much depth in 26 or 27, even if those drafts are top heavy.
And I do think we're gonna see one or two players come out of 26 or 27, more 27. I'm leaning more towards 27, where we might see a generational player or
McKenna's
two.
going to go number 1 in 26, but I don't think Landon DuPont is etched into that number 1 slot because I know somebody posted a YouTube video of the 27 NHL draft on NHL 25, and they gave both Alexis Joseph and Rocco Pelosi a higher rating than DuPont. So if both of those guys develop and
Well,
dominate, we could see one of them jump DuPont. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible. I'm not ruling it out. But I
we
think
talk.
DuPont's the favorite still at this point.
Well, I'll tell you what. If Pelosi has another season like he did this year, I think you're going to see a change.
I do too. I because DuPont was doing some things that Like he had one hand on the stick, and I know one of the first things your dad teaches you when you play hockey is keep two hands on the stick at all
Yeah,
times.
okay,
And
right.
and and it's like DuPont, yeah, he had some rookie mistakes, but if he cleans it up next year and he continues to improve, he should be the favorite. But if he doesn't, and Rocco Pelosi just dominates like he did in the U.S. national team, I think Pelosi's going to end up jumping him and being number one heading into the 27 draft cycle in the
Yeah.
fall of 26. I think we're on the same page, Ron.
Yeah, because that's what I think. I really think that Pelosi is gonna be that number one pick. We spoke to him twice already.
Yeah,
Okay, right.
I saw
And I
your
mean,
interview with him, but I agree. I think there could be a changing of the guard, either Pelosi or Joseph. One of them could end up jumping DuPont if
okay,
DuPont doesn't make improvements next year and one of those two just dominates right out of the gate.
right.
We're on the
Okay,
same page. I
okay.
don't think DuPont would fall past 3. I'm a
No,
realist,
right.
but I'm saying if he doesn't fix his improvements and one of those two dominates next year, we could see a changing of the guard. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
At
no.
number one,
Yeah,
just at number one. That's
yeah.
all I'm saying.
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
Ron's
no.
in agreement with me. That's the crazy part.
I mean, my gosh. It's like we've been seeing eye to eye the whole time. So now my last question for you is this. Which league do you think is going to have the most players drafted this year?
I'm going to say the Ontario Hockey League, but the Western Hockey League should have a lot of talent drafted as well. I think this draft, it's going to be very heavy on Canadian talent, American talent, and Swedish talent. That's
Yeah,
what I've seen as far as the trends go.
yeah.
There are some good gems from Finland and Finland. There's some gems from Russia. There's a few players from Slovakia, even. I found 2 players from Germany that were in this draft. So
Oh,
one of
oh,
my
oh.
favorites is Jimmy Lombardi. I mocked him to Dallas at 94, but Jimmy Lombardi, he was 9 for 13 on faceoffs against Michael Misa, which is very significant.
Right.
That is a very significant number. Jimmy Lombardi
I'll
played
say,
Firebird center.
right.
And he has the traits. I mean, his point, he only had 45 points, but he has the slap shot and wrist shot you want. He's a very good playmaker.
I
And he went
agree.
9 for 13 on faceoffs against Michael Misa. And even when Saginaw led Flint 3-1, he found a way to lead his team to a win, a comeback win in the third period, which is huge, which is what you're looking for.
Exactly. And
So,
I see a lot of those same kind of traits with David Lewandowski too.
yeah.
Right, of the German player. I really like his game. I really feel he could potentially be another one of those types of players. You know what I mean? That's going to be drafted relatively high. So that's going to come out of the leagues there. So, all right. Well, man, I'll tell you what. We covered a lot of information here, folks. We gave you a lot of stuff to digest, I guess, if you want to call it that, right? We had a great friend of the show, Chris Ransom, join us from Draft Utopia. Thank you so very much, sir, for joining us, man.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for
I,
having me
I,
on, Ron.
yeah, I hope we get to do this again.
Me too.
All right, that sounds awesome. So be looking for some stuff here with yours truly here and Chris. So can't wait for some of that. Man, I tell you what, we got a really great show here for you. We would like to say big thanks and props to Spreaker for all your help in getting us to all of the podcasting platforms. We really appreciate that. All you have to do is go out there to your favorite podcasting platform, type in Prospect Watch, and the show will come up. You give us a 5-star rating. That'll give us a great help. Also, if you like what we do, please hit the like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. By the way, we'll have all of Draft Utopia's information in the description where you'll be able to go check out the website and you'll be able to go check out the mock draft. It's going to be released by tomorrow. Check that out as well, too. So thank you all very much for hopping on. I'm your host, Ron Mont, and we will catch you all on the next episode of Prospect Watch.